I think Kamen Rider Build is one of the most interesting series in all of Kamen Rider. It's a show that I struggle to talk about because for me, it's not just another Kamen Rider show. It's something special. It's a story about the nature of science and war, identity and breaking the chains of destiny. And at least half of that, I'm probably not even going to talk about here. So without giving the whole show away, what can I talk about? Hello and welcome. I'm High C, and this is Toku-Rev, your introduction to Tokusatsu movie and TV shows to help you decide what you want to spend your time watching. Kamen Rider Build is the 19th series in the Heisei era of Kamen Rider shows, the last series to be filmed entirely in the Heisei era, sandwiched in the middle between Kamen Rider Ex-Aid and Kamen Rider Geo. Takahito Omori was the main producer for Kamen Rider Ex-Aid and continued on through Kamen Rider Build. New to the production team was Shogo Muto, who had previously written Train Man, a story about a train otaku, and the screenplay for You in Full Blossoms. Originally, Muto was playing with the idea of an escaped prisoner who's granted extreme power and turns his life around to become a hero of justice. Under the teachings of a master, the character roles were reworked, and the prisoner went from the main character to a supporting character, working in a more manzai character relationship, or basically an odd couple. Omori looked to the themes of war and stunted economic growth in the original 1971 Kamen Rider, and envisioned Kamen Rider Build as a warning to an advanced civilization, and asking the question, is the end of scientific development war? The team decided that they wanted to have a show with a lot of twists and turns, so that people couldn't predict what was going to happen on social media and image boards, developing the drama elements before the toy production, inviting adult viewers back to Kamen Rider. 10 years ago, the first Japanese manned spacecraft landed on Mars. The astronauts found a mysterious box and brought it back to Earth to research, dubbed Pandora's Box. During a celebration of the mission's success, Pandora's Box is activated, where the island nation is separated, divided into 3 parts separated by the giant skywall. The skywall creates a physical barrier, making all 3 divisions turn into their own nations. With Toto in Eastern Japan, a government that respects pacifism and advocates for diplomacy, choosing to avoid conflict through dialogue. They never push strongly for policies and rely on special forces for defense. Hokuto in northern Japan. Before the skywall went up, Hokuto had a lush agriculture, pushing policies that supported a healthy family life. However, after the skywall popped up, the soil became polluted, destroying their economy and impoverishing their people. Then there is Seto, western Japan. Focusing on developing the best and the brightest, the faction is unsafe with cameras on every corner, and home to Namba Industries. Ever since the skywall went up, people have started to be attacked by Smash. No one knows the origin of the Smash, but blame it on the skywall. Behind the scenes, the Smash are the result of human experimentation, using the gas expelled from the skywall, causing the victims to lose their sense of identity and attack those around them. The experiments are performed by a mysterious secret society named Faust. The name is the same as the German legend Faust, where a highly successful yet dissatisfied man makes a deal with the devil at the crossroads, exchanging his soul for unlimited knowledge and worldly pleasures. Faust is led by Nightrobe, looking to create the ultimate human life form, creating smash after smash after smash, repeating and refining the experiment. When Smash lose control and attack people, there's only one person who steps up to help: Kiryu Sento, a genius scientist who transforms into Kamen Rider Build. He develops and fights with his own machines, inventions, and tools. When he's upset or excited about an experiment, he rubs his head and it makes this little hair thing that I think is supposed to represent a curious rabbit ear. He works as a research scientist for the Institute of Advanced Materials Science in Toto, tasked with analyzing Pandora's Box. Kamen Rider Build fights Smashes, and when they've fallen, he extracts their essence, creating a full bottle. Full bottles represent elements, typically 1 organic and 1 mechanical. With a build driver and research, Sento can figure out which full bottles match together, creating a best match, always needing one organic element and one mechanical element, allowing Sento to take on different Kamen Rider forms. As the show goes on, Sento discovers how to create new additions through research. Sento is not shy to call himself a genius and typically has a snippy attitude. Yet he has a strong sense of justice and will go far to help people. At one point noting, he doesn't care about the danger. He just wants to help people and doesn't want anything in return. Even if people dislike him, it doesn't matter. If you're helping someone so that they'll like you or you'll gain a reward, then that's not justice. There's just one thing with Sento. He doesn't know his past. He's an amnesiac. After a few months back, he doesn't remember much. He was found unconscious by Shuichi Izaragi in a back alley, and Sento took up residency in the basement of Shuichi's cafe, creating a research lab and sharing his space with Mizora Izaragi, Shuichi's beloved daughter who has an uninterested, cold, and distant personality, who also works as an energetic internet idol named Mintan. Mizora also has a mysterious ability to decompose and purify the ingredients of a smash and turn it into a full bottle for Sento. Sento's life consists of fighting Smash and doing research. He mostly fights from the shadows, not being known for battling Smash. That is until a prisoner escapes from jail, running into him, disrupting his life. Banjo Ryuga, a former boxer who was banished from fighting for match fixing for money to help pay for his girlfriend's illness. Arrested under suspicion for murdering the Pandora scientist, Katsuragi. Sento tries to capture Banjo and send him back to jail, but upon finding out that they both have similar memory loss issues, Sento creates a partnership with Banjo, taking him into hiding. Through the show, Banjo becomes close with Sento, and eventually turns into a companion rider as Kamen Rider Cross. Banjo is a meathead and the antithesis of Sento, always rushing in with his fist swinging. The two together make an odd couple pairing, sometimes butting heads but always coming together to protect each other like brothers. Fighting Smash and harboring a fugitive has put a freelance reporter, Sawa, on their case, discovering that Sento is Build and forming a mutual relationship, keeping Sento's identity a secret and keeping Banjo out of police custody, taking her payment in the exchange of information. Sawa also has links to the underground and helps Sento in connecting him to things like smugglers. Altogether, Sento, Banjo, Shuichi, Mizora, and Sawa form a dysfunctional family that can lean on and help each other, creating a caring atmosphere in the show. Together, they try to unlock the mysteries of Sento's past, Banjo's murder, and Mizora's abilities, and the truth behind Pandora's box, the Skywall, and Faust. I love the production of Kamen Rider Build, and I could probably write a complete diatribe on every suit in the show, and there are a lot of suits. Most of them follow a similar pattern and design. For Build, it's mostly about elements twisting around each other. Each of the eye plates are representative of one of the full bodies. In rabbit tank form, it's the tank gun on one eye and a rabbit's ear on the other, along with rolling tank treads on one foot and a spring helping him jump like a rabbit on the other. Probably my favorite build form is Hawk Gatling, a black, gray, and orange design that allows for flight mobility. When I originally saw the build driver, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I just thought it seemed kind of weird with its crank. In my mind's eye, it just kind of seemed weird to take out the bottles and shake them up and then jam on this crank to get a transformation going. The full bottles were made thinking about mixing chemicals in plastic bottles. And then later in the series, they introduced jellies, so it kind of just looks like energy drink bottles and protein jellies from the grocery store. I really like the cross form for Banjo. I also used to do work as an audio engineer, and seeing a VU meter on the sword is just awesome. Later in the show, he gets another form from using the jelly, and I think that form still looks pretty cool, but I kind of feel like the two forms should be switched around because I still just find that base cross form amazing. The suits do change often, but I think they always kind of stay close to what that base form usually is. So when they do add a significant upgrade, it really does feel like something special. Then there's the transformation scenes. When Build transforms, it kind of looks like the rails from a Gunpla model set. And I'm not really positive that's actually what they went for, but either way, I'm pretty into it. The add-ons make sense and work within the show's aesthetic. Basically, research military war devices. For instance, when they show the hazard trigger, I'm basically in love. It just feels dangerous. Kamen Rider shows don't have a huge budget, and I really do think this is an instance of completely maximizing their assets. There are a lot of really great shots and camera work, and sometimes it can feel like an overexposed soap opera, and then sometimes it seems so masterfully crafted. One thing I found really cool is the mathematics they use for a lot of the finishing moves, or just on the whiteboards in Sento's basement research lab. The production crew brought researchers in from different Japanese universities to make it so whatever formulas they were using actually had a real significance to the show. Hazard levels are a device used in the show to help characters advance their equipment or the plot, using the real-life formula for mathematical synchronization, or the ratio of how hard you have to adapt to fit into your surroundings. The story is told in 3 main chapters. Everything I've discussed so far is only involved in chapter 1, so there are a lot of smaller things that I can't mention. I think the storytelling is really solid and very well paced. Episodes carry themselves, but are also advancing the story, keeping you intrigued and wanting to stay through to the conclusion. When I first started watching Tokusatsu, I loved it, but I kind of wanted something a little meatier. But I also didn't want something that was going to overshadow the things that brought me in and that I really liked. You hear a lot about people trying to defend their love of Tokusatsu by trying to frame it so that it doesn't resemble a kid's show anymore. I've never felt the need to defend it, and I really don't care that kids are the target audience. I mean, I barely know any adults who haven't seen like every Pixar movie. And there are things out there like Garo and Kamen Rider Amazons that are made for an adult audience in mind. And while I like both Garo and Amazons, they weren't exactly what I was looking for at the time. I think Kamen Rider Build really showed me what I want out of a Kamen Rider show. It's still colorful and has fun fight scenes, and there's this emotional weight that I've been looking for ever since I got into Tokusatsu. I really wish I could go into that in this video, but I always thought of Toku-Rev as an introduction into Tokusatsu, giving you just enough information to let you know if these are the themes and kind of characters that you want to spend your time watching. There are so many moments with such emotional weight. Kamen Rider Build just breaks your heart. There are scenes where characters really have to ask themselves who they are, what they want to be, and how to build yourself into the person you see in your head. Every time they transform, the driver screams out, "Are you ready?" And you just sit there knowing in some moments that they're not. There are characters that are so vitally important to this show that I wouldn't dare bring up right now for fear of spoiling it for you. Think Kamen Rider Build is a show with no superfluous characters. Everyone in the show matters, and maybe they're not all huge exciting plot points, but they matter, and their lives matter to the story. Every character has some kind of arc, and I genuinely cared about each and every one of them. More than I have in any other Kamen Rider series, and more than I have in really any show. I don't think of this as a show with a main character. I think of it as a show with multiple stories that the viewer gets to experience. To me, someone like Banjo isn't a secondary rider. He's just as essential as Sento, and at many times in the series, he's even more important. I don't typically bring up acting in these videos because I don't speak Japanese and I don't live in Japan. So there's a lot of cultural things that just are not going to translate to me that make me feel really uncomfortable critiquing them. That said, there are performances that just had my jaw on the ground. There's text and subtext, and it all translates through the language and cultural barriers. These actors and actresses nail it. There's also another reason I love Build, and it has a lot less to do with the show. If I can be personal for a minute, Kamen Rider Build is a really special show for me. I started watching Build when it was about 3/4 of the way through airing. It really wasn't that long before I created this YouTube channel, and I was pretty uncomfortable about putting myself out there and making content. But I started to make these new creator friends over the internet. People like Carney X, Protodubs, Lambo Calrissian, and Marco Satsu, and Special Form 12. And they were almost all watching Kamen Rider Build weekly. Once I started watching it to try to catch up, I fell in love instantly. It became a magical time of like talking back and forth in a group Discord chat, talking about what we liked, what we didn't like, theories, and what toys we just bought. Me, Karn, Lambo, and Proto basically flew around the world to all meet up in California for Power Morphicon. We rented a house together for the weekend, and I can remember on the plane ride there, I was watching Kamen Rider Build on my laptop between two gruff military guys, and I'm just sitting here like trying to hide that tears are streaming down my face as they're looking over wondering, what is this Power Ranger stuff this guy's watching? We all wore drivers to the convention. All of them had different configurations of the Build driver or the Evolt driver, and I had a double driver because it was the only one I had at that point. I remember two of them snuck off to the other room so they could watch that week's episode of Build, but trying to keep the volume on their phone as low as possible as to not spoil anything for us. I honestly can't think of Kamen Rider Build without thinking about this small community of really close friends that I developed. Most of us don't talk about Tokusatsu anymore, and some of them don't even watch it anymore. Some of us got busier with jobs, and we don't even want to talk about the pandemic, and it just made it so some of us grew apart more than others. And it's natural to develop different interests or get busy and fade away a little bit from each other, but I can kind of always go back to this one series and relive this really cool part of my life, and I'm always gonna miss it. And it just doesn't feel like I could talk about this without including that. So would I recommend Kamen Rider Build? Well, absolutely. Every time someone asks me what is the best Kamen Rider to start with, I immediately think of Build. I think it's one of the most developed Kamen Rider series. It has strong characters and arcs, and it has great production and great suits. It has amazing stories that are both approachable and binge-worthy. One of my only problems is going into another season of Kamen Rider, because it's really hard. I think Kamen Rider Build gave me everything I was looking for in a Kamen Rider series. And now I feel like I'm always going to be trying to fill that void. Whenever I'm asked who my favorite Kamen Rider is, I always say Double. But then I'm quick to add, but Build is my favorite show. Thanks for watching. This is Toku-Rev, your introduction to Tokusatsu movie and TV shows. Leave a comment and let me know if you'd like me to talk about that other stuff in Build in future videos. Or just tell me, how did you enjoy Build? Am I overblowing this? Am I far off the mark? Or did you have a great experience with it too? But that's it. I'm High C, and I hope you keep watching.